3 days after the cowboy rejected the chief's daughter, the entire frontier expected her to disappear forever. Instead, just before sunrise, a lone rider appeared at his ranch. It was her. She carried no weapons, no guards, and no fear. What she said next stunned the cowboy, silenced the chief, and sparked a chain of events that no one across the frontier would ever forget. The first light of morning spread across the Arizona desert as Daniel Harper finished repairing a wooden fence outside his quiet ranch. Life on the frontier had taught him to value peace more than praise. His days were simple, filled with hard work, loyal horses, and the wide open land he proudly called home. Late that afternoon, a group of Apache riders appeared on the distant ridge. At their center rode Chief White Eagle and his daughter Ayanna, whose wisdom and kindness were admired throughout the region. Their visit was unexpected, and word quickly reached nearby settlers that something important was about to happen. Standing beneath the shade of an old cottonwood tree, the chief offered a proposal unlike any the frontier had seen. As a symbol of lasting peace between their people, he invited Daniel to marry his daughter. The gathering fell silent as every eye turned toward the cowboy. Daniel lowered his head for a moment before speaking with quiet respect. "I am honored by your trust," he said. "But I cannot accept." The crowd whispered in disbelief. No one had expected such an answer. Ayanna did not argue. She simply looked into Daniel's eyes, as though searching for a truth that words could not explain. Then she thanked him with calm dignity before riding away beside her father. For 3 long days, the frontier buzzed with rumors. Some believed the friendship between the ranchers and the Apache people had ended forever. Others wondered what secret had led the cowboy to refuse such an honorable offer. Then, before sunrise on the 4th morning, a single horse appeared on the trail leading to Daniel's ranch. It was Ayanna. She had come alone, and the determined look in her eyes told Daniel that this story was only beginning. Daniel stepped onto the porch as the morning sun painted the desert in soft shades of gold. Ayanna gently guided her horse to a stop beside the ranch gate. She wore simple traveling clothes instead of the traditional garments she had worn 3 days earlier. There were no warriors beside her, no signs of ceremony, and no expression of anger. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, Daniel broke the silence. "I did not expect to see you here." Ayanna offered a small smile. "I knew you would not." He opened the gate and invited her inside. After tying her horse near the barn, they sat beneath the old cottonwood tree where the proposal had been made only days before. "I did not come to change your answer," Ayanna said calmly. "I respect the choice you made." Daniel looked surprised. "Then why have you come?" She reached into a small leather pouch and carefully unfolded an old piece of cloth. Inside was a hand-drawn map, faded by time. The edges were worn, and several markings had almost disappeared. "My mother gave this to me before she passed away," Ayanna said softly. "She believed it would lead to a hidden valley where our people once gathered in peace. She always hoped someone would find it again." Daniel studied the map closely. One small drawing caught his attention. "I have seen this mountain before," he whispered. Ayanna looked up with hope. "When I was a boy, my father often traveled through these lands. He spoke about a valley hidden behind tall cliffs, but he never found a safe path inside." She nodded. "I believe the path still exists." Daniel remained quiet. He knew the country beyond the mountains was difficult to cross. Deep canyons, dry rivers, and endless trails made every journey uncertain. Still, something about the map stirred an old memory he had nearly forgotten. After a few moments, he folded the map carefully and handed it back. "If this valley is real, the journey will not be easy." "I know," Ayanna replied. "And there is no promise we will find anything." "I understand." Daniel looked toward the distant mountains rising above the desert. He remembered his father's stories and the promise he had once made to never ignore someone searching for hope. At last, he smiled. "Then we leave tomorrow at sunrise." Relief filled Ayanna's face. For the first time since arriving at the ranch, she laughed quietly. As they prepared supplies throughout the afternoon, neither of them noticed 3 Apache riders watching from a distant ridge. They had been sent by Chief White Eagle, not to interfere, but to quietly protect his daughter during the dangerous journey ahead. Far beyond the mountains, Another traveler unfolded a different map with the very same destination marked upon it. Without knowing it, Daniel and Ayana were no longer the only ones searching for the hidden valley. At sunrise, Daniel and Ayana left the ranch and rode toward the distant mountains. The desert stretched before them with endless red cliffs, quiet valleys, and winding trails that few people still remembered. Their horses moved at a steady pace as the warm breeze carried the scent of dry grass and blooming desert flowers. The first 2 days passed peacefully. They crossed shallow streams, climbed rocky hills, and rested beneath tall cottonwood trees when the afternoon sun became too strong. Along the way, Ayana shared stories her mother had told about the hidden valley. It was not a place of riches. It was a place where families gathered, children played, and different tribes settled disagreements through wisdom instead of anger. One afternoon, they heard the frightened cry of a young wild horse trapped between fallen rocks near a narrow trail. Without hesitation, Daniel climbed down and carefully cleared the loose stones while Ayana gently calmed the frightened animal. After several careful moments, the horse stepped free and disappeared across the open desert. Watching it run, both smiled without saying a word. That evening, they built a small camp beside a quiet stream. As the stars slowly filled the sky, Daniel finally spoke about the reason he had refused the marriage proposal. "Many years ago," he said softly, "I lost someone very important because I could not reach her in time. Since then, I promised myself I would never ask another person to carry the weight of my past." Ayana listened quietly before answering. "You were not afraid of marriage," she said. "You were afraid of causing someone else pain." Daniel looked into the campfire and slowly nodded. For the first time since they had met, they truly understood each other. Neither of them noticed distant riders watching from a rocky ridge. Someone else was following the same trail, and the hidden valley was closer than either of them realized. On the 4th morning, Daniel and Ayana reached the highest ridge they had climbed since leaving the ranch. From there, the land opened into a narrow canyon hidden between towering red cliffs. A cool breeze flowed through the rocks, carrying the sound of water that had been hidden from sight. Ayana unfolded her mother's map once more. Every mark now matched the land before them. "This is the place," she whispered. They carefully followed the winding path until the canyon opened into a beautiful valley unlike anything they had ever seen. Crystal-clear springs flowed through green grass, tall cottonwood trees offered cool shade, and colorful wildflowers covered the ground. Ancient stone carvings stood quietly beneath the trees, telling the story of families who had once gathered there in peace. Ayana slowly walked to a circle of smooth stones at the center of the valley. She gently placed her hand on one of the carvings. "My mother was right," she said with tears in her eyes. "Our people never forgot this place. Time simply hid it." Daniel smiled, happy that her long journey had not been in vain. Suddenly, the sound of approaching horses echoed through the valley. A small group of treasure hunters rode into the clearing. Their leader looked around with excitement, believing the hidden valley contained riches waiting to be claimed. Daniel stepped forward calmly. "There is nothing here for you except history and peace," he said. The strangers searched the valley but found no gold or precious stones. They soon realized the place held something far more valuable than wealth. Seeing Daniel and Ayana standing together with quiet confidence, they chose to turn their horses and leave without further trouble. As the last rider disappeared beyond the canyon, 3 familiar Apache warriors quietly entered the valley. They had watched over the journey from a distance and now smiled with relief. Before sunset, Chief White Eagle himself arrived. Looking across the peaceful valley, he understood that the greatest treasure his daughter had found was not hidden beneath the earth, but in the trust that had grown between 2 people from different worlds. As the sun dipped below the Arizona mountains, Chief White Eagle gathered his warriors, family, and nearby settlers in the peaceful valley. Standing before everyone, he thanked Daniel for helping his daughter fulfill her mother's final wish. "You honored our people without making a promise you could not keep," the chief said warmly. "That is the mark of an honest man." Daniel bowed respectfully. As everyone prepared for the journey home, Ayana walked beside Daniel. "You were right to follow your heart," she said with a gentle smile. "And I am glad I followed mine." Daniel smiled for the first time in many years. Perhaps every journey begins with a single honest choice. Together they rode back toward the open frontier, no longer as strangers from different worlds, but as trusted friends with a future still waiting to be written. Sometimes the greatest bond is not created by tradition or expectation. It begins with respect, grows through kindness, and lasts because both hearts choose the same path. As the last rays of sunlight faded beyond the Arizona horizon, Daniel and Ayanna rode side by side toward a future built on trust, respect, and hope. Their story became a reminder across the frontier that the strongest relationships are never forced. They are earned through honesty, courage, and kindness. Sometimes the path we refuse leads us to the life we were always meant to find. If you enjoyed this story, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more original Western frontier stories filled with unforgettable adventures, courage, friendship, and inspiring moments. Share this story with someone who believes that respect and compassion can bring people together, no matter how different their worlds may seem. We would love to hear from you. What would you have done if you were the cowboy? Would you have accepted the chief's proposal or made the same choice Daniel did? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next frontier story.